Runs with Courage, Chapter 14, Renewal. My anger burned like fire, constantly threatening to engulf me. I was angry at the whites, I was angry at the school, and I was angry at the other girls who did what they were told, saying the white prayers and letting their hair be cut without protest. They didn't seem to care if the Indian inside them was being killed. I refused to talk unless directed to by a teacher. During lunch, I sat alone and nibbled at my food. During lessons, I sat in the back of the schoolroom, away from everyone else. Four Winds, Waxtall whispered. Why are you so angry? I looked at her, afraid that if I tried to answer, nothing but hurtful words would come to my mouth, words that wouldn't be able to stop. Moonawake looked less sympathetic. I told you it was a bad idea, she said. I told you they would bring you back. I pretended I hadn't heard her. Sarah, please stay in the classroom after lessons, Miss Beatrice directed a few days after my return. Obediently, I sat in my desk in the back of the room as the other girls walked out for afternoon chores. William was the last to leave. I could hear the swishing of his shoes as he shuffled out of the room with everyone else. Miss Beatrice came and sat next to me. I refused to look at her, staring straight ahead. It's hard to learn new things that you do not know, to understand a different way of life, she said. I understand it is difficult. She touched my hand. But there is a plan. I believe this, she continued, and when the time is right, God reveals his plan. When I was younger, I didn't understand this, but now I see it. It is in his plan that I teach. I work with children that I help you, but I help the Indians. I looked at her, and I could see a genuine caring in her eyes. She cared, but she knew nothing of my world. All she knew was that it would be extinguished. I nodded, then stood and walked out. That night, I knelt alongside my bed with everyone else and pretended to say my prayers. I made my lips move, but no words came out. Instead of speaking the words, I thought of my little brother. He was the reason I was here. I was the reason my Tiospa would still receive rations. Waxtall knelt beside me, her voice loud and clear as she repeated the white prayer. Out in the corner of my eye, I could see Moonawake watching me. She seemed angry with me. I wasn't sure if it was because I had left or because I had returned. The air outside had become biting cold, and our sleeping room was drafty. The teachers had brought extra blankets for each of us. Snow, I knew, would be coming soon to cover the ground. Before our confinement to the reservation, this new season had been a time of change and moving. We would gather our homes, people, and stories, and travel from the sacred Hisapa forest to the shadow of Big Rock, where we would make our winter camp. Cousin and I would race ponies so fast across the prairie it felt as if we were the wind itself. Everything about our lives would move to the change of the seasons. Now, nothing changed to match the moon or the season or the weather. Instead, things moved around the white world that rested in the middle of everything, as if it were the pole star itself. I longed to see the moon in its steady glow. It would help soothe my anger and calm my spirit. As everyone else tried to get warm beneath their blankets, I crept to the window to try to find the moon. But when I looked out, I forgot about the moon because I saw small flakes of snow beginning to fall. My heart lightened. Snow always did this. Even though the plants fell into a slumber to prepare for its coming, the snow itself had a promise that spring would come again. And I love seeing the snow. Movement on the ground below caught my eye, and I blinked, not sure if I could believe what I saw. It was William. He was dancing. Flakes of snow rested momentarily on his shoulders before dropping off in his graceful movements. My Tiospa always danced with the first snow. We danced to celebrate the change of seasons, to acknowledge the movement of the earth and the moon and the harmony of both. I felt tears come to my eyes. As I watched him, I could imagine the beat of the silent drum he danced to. I could imagine the sounds of the elder's voice rising and falling in story. His dance was so clear that I could almost see the story he was telling. I watched as long as I could until my eyelids threatened to shut in sleep. Then I went back to my space and fell into a peaceful sleep. My angry spirit had been soothed, but not by the moon. Unexpectedly, it had been soothed by William. The dull, loud clang of the bell awakened me the next morning. "Snow!" someone cried in Lakota, and everyone ran to the small window, pushing one another to get a view. I joined from behind, looking out at the white blanket covering the ground, remembering the dance from the night before. "It's so pretty," Waxtall said, turning toward me. I nodded, smiling, almost forgetting my anger. An excited hum buzzed around everyone as we ate breakfast that morning. Even Pinchfinger was smiling. "The snow is lovely, isn't it, children?" Yes, Miss Agnes, everyone said in unison. I stayed silent. Today after church service, instead of reading, you will have a chance to play in the snow. There were delighted squeals, and even I felt excited to miss our required readings on Sundays and spend some time outside in the fresh new snow. God will punish sinners, Pastor Huber emphasized during the service that morning. He kept looking at me as I spoke. Those who run from his shall be punished, he continued. I was sure this passage was meant for me, but I didn't care about his words. Instead, I watched William sitting a few rows ahead of me. Who was this boy who danced so gracefully yet slouched in the slow walk and seemed to misunderstand everything? The service ended, and we filed out of the church. Gather shawls and scarfs, girls, Miss Margaret directed. Get dressed for the snow. Pinchfinger came towards us, bundled in so many clothes she looked like an overstuffed bear. I heard a soft giggle from someone. I turned to follow the other girls into the house when William suddenly was in front of me. He stood, an unreadable expression on his face, his scarred hand resting at his side. You were watching me today in the church, he said, in Lakota. Why? He took me by surprise. I didn't know he had seen me watching him. I stuttered. I no longer felt frightened of him, but I didn't understand him, and I couldn't explain why. You what? He hissed. You watched to mock me? No, I missed the dance, I said quietly. Confusion flickered across his eyes for a second, and then gone. He turned straight ahead without talking and walked towards the barn. I watched him for a moment, and then turned to join the others. Once everyone was bundled as warmly as possible, Miss Margaret called us to the circle together. Unexpectedly, she dropped to the ground and laid on her back, moving her arms and legs in wide circles through the snow. Then she stood and pointed at the image left behind. Do you see, girls? It's a snow angel, she said. It did look like one of those spirit beings the whites called angels, with wings coming out from its sides. Your turn, she encouraged. Try, it is fun. One of the younger girls started, and then we each dropped down, making white snow angels. Without even realizing what we were doing, we connected our images one to another so that our wings had formed a large circle of snow angels. Lovely, lovely, Pinchfinger clapped. Look, they're all connected, like they are in heaven. But when I looked at the circle of images, I didn't see white angels gathered together in heaven. I saw a circle of people dancing, their arms swaying in time to the drum beat. I smiled to myself, realizing that in our own way, the girls of this white school had danced our Lakota dance with the first snow.